Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening again. And welcome to this auspicious event, the first annual Christopher Kolade lecture on business integrity.
Integrity, which is what we've been asked to speak about, as an attribute has been found to be the most influential and distinguishing equality with regard to the success of businesses. Integrity is a concept of consistency of actions, values, methods, measures, principles, expectations, and outcomes. At its core, integrity must start at the helm, beginning with a company's leader who understands the qualities of integrity, which then filters and percolate down through the organization. And it should affect every member's approach and attitude to work and conduct. In fact, when business integrity is present throughout the deepest layers of a company and not just at the surface, it becomes the heart and soul, call it the DNA of the company. And that could mean the difference between a company that succeeds and a company that falters. Integrity should thus be embedded in the very foundation and heart of a business so that it does not falter. The importance and practice of good corporate governance cannot be overemphasized, and companies that play strictly by the rules become investors' delight and also very attractive for possible cross-border listings. Such companies distinguish themselves from others. On the other hand, companies that do not adhere to and practice good corporate governance do get penalized, as such companies, for example, could easily get rejected when they try to do cross-border listings.
Can I ask Mr. Gbenga Oyebode, member of the Federal Republic and Senior Advocate of Nigeria, to come and give us the first annual Christopher Kolade lecture. Mr. Oyebode.
What's the message for Nigeria? The message is that corruption cannot, or at least in the way that corruption continues to grow in Nigeria, that it's unsustainable to grow a nation like Nigeria, even with all the nice data and statistics that I have reeled out, that it's unsustainable to build an economy or a country with significant corruption or significant unethical behavior.
First, we would like to divide the awards into two groups. There's the first three who will be given, although they're all being given an award for the same reason, but I'd like to mention that we'll give the second group first, and the first group would be last. There were a group of people who actually came to the rescue of a few young people who came in 1997 to make a presentation at the Chamber of Commerce, and they got the shock of their lives when lots of business people that looked up to all their lives said, "Young man, we're sorry, we cannot support anything that sounds like anti-corruption because anti-corruption is anti-government, and we would like to sleep in our own beds." This was a shock, well, to some of us who were making the presentation at the time. The first group were the people who were incensed at what their colleagues were saying, and they rose up to our defense there and then, and they fought with their colleagues on the floor of the chamber. But the second group, they now went, the first group went ahead to now enlist some of their colleagues to come and give reinforcement and support the starting of some kind of movement. I know that in those days, and I know Professor Oshibajo will bear me witness, we said we'd like to be that matchstick that starts the bushfire. If in the end the fire consumes the matchstick, it's all fine, so long as the fire continues. That's all we have as an expectation, because we kept reminding ourselves that this is probably like a missionary journey. You'll probably never complete it in your own lifetime. So don't start looking for milestones where there are no milestones. It's all about getting it started. It was a time where people complained about human rights abuses, And a few of us said, well, people's rights are being abused because they're exposing corruption. And we think corruption is the main issue. And it was very difficult to get anybody to support us at that time. So that is where I'm going to go. And before I continue, I'd like to invite Professor Yemi Osinbajo, who is our vice chairman, to actually come on the stage and help with the presentations. Professor Osinbajo. The first recipient of the award it's going to the late Ambassador Professor Gabriel Olusoya. At a point, he was in charge of the Nigerian Institute of Management. Before that, he was at the Nigerian Institute of International Affairs as well. And I know that he had a hard time trying to convince his council to adopt and get involved in the business integrity movement. Angered that he could not get through, he decided to come personally and sign the Convention on Business Integrity as an individual. And that is what we're recognizing tonight. Because without people like that, the whole discourse, the whole debate, and I know in Prof's words, he used to say, let's get the issue on the front burner. At least when it's discussed as a national issue, then we would have made some progress.
The next awardee tonight is Dr. Michael Kolade. He's also who Dr. Christopher Kolade picked up the phone and only had to speak to him for a few minutes before he could see the passion come through his own voice as well. And when he determined that this must be done, and not only did he sign up to the Convention on Business Integrity, he also signed his company up in 1997, at a time when people were not concerned about the issue of business integrity. We salute you. It's the same inscription. Last but not least in this category is the person that Ike had alluded to, who has a connection to the musical society of Nigeria. Is Mr. Akintola Williams, who will come. Because again, for Mr. Akintola Williams, it was only a phone call from Dr. Kolade, and he got involved. He has everything documented. He was here before that, and even before the rule of law, but this is Nigeria's first chartered accountant. I will start with the late surveyor Adekunle Kukoyi, who was one of the people who actually spoke up as well in that room that day. So on behalf of the board of the Convention on Business Integrity, we'd like to present this award. Professor Patrick Okenachi Usomi. In Nigeria, he was a presidential aspirant. He's somebody who has inspired us with his work on Isusu and Ajo and what is written about institutions and political economy in this country, some of which went into the creation of the rating system for the Convention on Business Integrity. This is where some of the ideas
Came from in the first place. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you, sir. Prof, but not the least. In the room that same day, in the same chamber, there was one person who not only rose to our defense, but proceeded to give a lecture to all the senior people who were in the room at the time, followed us outside, gave us his card, and said we should come and see him. Anybody we needed to see, in order for this to materialize, he would ensure that we could see them. 2 years later, we went back to him after all his help and said, well, we think you better come and chair this whole thing and help give it the kind of direction that we need. I don't think he needs any more introduction, Prof. Who is he?
Dr. Christopher Kolade. Here you are.
It's heavy, sir. This is very heavy.
And sometimes they will remember that when I finally agreed to become chairman of CBI, I said to them, all right, you know I'm very busy, and you know I'm not young anymore. I'll do this for 2 years, and then you can find your way around how to do it. That was in 1997. This is 2013, and our 2 years have not expired yet. But the reason why those 2 years have got extended is that I look at these two people, and I say, really, if I left them now, if I deserted them because I have something better to do, I might regret it. Because there's something about trying to improve your environment that if you think you can do it, and you don't do it, and other people do it the way it should not be done, you can die before your time. At the end of the day, whatever you have, whether it is good health, or strength, or sharp faculty, or just a motivation to do good, they're all gifts of Almighty God. And if you want to serve Almighty God, if you don't want to betray Him, use your gifts to improve your situation. And that is what He is going to bless. And it is His blessing that brings the good results. God bless you.
The Convention on Business Integrity, CBI, a company limited by guarantee, is a business membership organization established in 1997 and incorporated in 2003 with the mission of promoting ethical business practices, transparency, and fair competition in the private and public sectors. The CBI recently put together the second annual Christopher Kolade Lecture on Business Integrity at the ballroom of the Lagos Oriental Hotel, Victoria Island. The theme was The Business Case for Business Integrity. Speaker was Ms. Aruma Ote, Director General of the Securities and Exchange Commission. As expected, the business community turned out in their numbers for the lecture this year. Welcoming his guest, Mr. Soji Apampa, Executive Director CBI, said that integrity is still a deficiency in most businesses in Nigeria.
We found it necessary to have a lecture series on business integrity because we feel business integrity is still not what drives the ethos and the business model of many businesses in Nigeria. And we feel that that integrity deficiency continues to limit the competitiveness of the Nigerian economy as a whole. Why have we named this lecture series after our distinguished former chairman? It's because he, throughout his working life, in the different sectors of society where he has worked, he has exemplified the ideals of business integrity.
In the contemporary business world, integrity is one of the most sought-after qualities not only of individual employees but of companies. Joining his voice to welcome participants to the lecture, Dr. Christopher Kolade put forward some thought-provoking questions.
And we must ask ourselves the question, why is it that so many people in business have not yet committed themselves to doing business with integrity? Why is it that we find ourselves discovering day after day that there's still a wide gap between what we all know to be right and what we actually do? And I believe that this is one of the reasons why the Convention on Business Integrity decided to start this series of lectures. And tonight we're looking at the business case for business integrity.
People often define integrity as doing the right thing even when no one else is around. It is the ability to act with honesty and be consistent in whatever it is you are doing based on the particular moral, value, or belief compass in place. Delivering the theme of the lecture this year, the business case for business integrity, Ms. Ote, DG Sec, said that there is need for paradigm shift among business managers. According to her, to become competitive in today's global economy, companies and public institutions must imbibe global best practices.
Nigeria did better than only Argentina and Venezuela on the issue of diversion of public funds. We were ranked 142 out of 144. On the issue of payment of bribes, should I go on? We were ranked 135. So have I made the case that if Nigeria is misunderstood and ranked lower than it should be, which is what I believe, and which is often the case, for me is not the issue. What is the issue is that we must have a paradigm shift where we focus more on proper conduct. To become competitive and remain relevant in today's global economy, our companies and public institutions must also imbibe international best practice in every sense of that word. But I think we should even do better. We should exceed what the global standards are and be the benchmark that others focus on.
Trust and integrity are inextricably connected. Individuals and organizations use the presence or absence of integrity to determine whether an extension of trust is warranted. The panel discussion at the lecture provided a platform for sharing practical experience on business integrity. Panelists were Professor Joan Elegido, Vice Chancellor, Pan-Atlantic University; Mrs. Bola Adeshola, MD CEO, Standard Chartered Bank Nigeria Limited; Mr. Lolu Akinwumi, Group CEO, Prima Garnet Africa; Ms. Ayotola Jagun, Chief Compliance Officer and Company Secretary, Oando PLC; and Mr. Michael Lokota, MD CEO, Siemens Limited Nigeria. Moderator was Mr. Okpeyemi Agbaje, Senior Consultant, CEO, RTC Advisory Services Limited. Nigeria has been repeatedly labeled one of the most corrupt countries in the world. Over the last 5 consecutive rounds of the Transparency International Corruption Perception Index, Nigeria scored less than 2.8 points, putting it into the same group with countries like Honduras, Pakistan, and Togo. This perceived all-encompassing culture of corruption gives the impression that there is practically no room for anyone to operate outside its borders. A strong consensus has grown that if Nigeria is to develop, the battle against corruption must be fought on different battlefields. The key objective of CBI is to provide an alternative to the perceived all-encompassing culture of corruption, showing that there are other ways of behaving and doing business in a highly corrupt environment like Nigeria.